you mentioned your opposition to the Vietnam War. And now I'm curious, where do you stand then on the Iraq War, and does it fit the jus ad bellum, the jus in bello criteria for a just war?
Let me put it this way. I think the argument can be made, and by some has been made in a persuasive manner, that the American intervention to overthrow Saddam Hussein fits the criteria of traditional just war doctrine. It is obvious that the subsequent, now 5 years, has been witness to many, many enormous mistakes, miscalculations, etc. I think it is important that the United States and its role in the world not be utterly humiliated by whatever the outcome in Iraq and in Afghanistan, for that matter. And it is very important that the radical jihadist Islamic forces not be encouraged and strengthened by whatever the outcome is. As to how we achieve those two goals, that's beyond my pay grade.
well, God is often described as a man of war in the Bible, mighty in battle in the Psalms. And at the same time, then, couldn't someone then say, regarding just war, what do you think about when someone says, well, when he's described as a man of war and man of battle, this is, our warfare is not waged against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of evil, and therefore the actions taken in the Old Testament, actions by whether they would be David going out and slaughtering whole towns, or the Israelites going into Canaan. Those actions are not relevant today under our new covenant, under the new covenant of Jesus Christ. What would you say that therefore just war theory can't stand up because we do not wage war against flesh and blood?
Well, no, I think the Christian understanding is very clearly that we, the Church of Jesus Christ, are not the people of Israel, the elect nation. We are a community that is finally at home only in the promised coming of the kingdom of God. In what the great text here, the great, perhaps unsurpassed Christian reflection on these questions is St. Augustine's City of God, written in the 4th, 5th century, as he was coping with the question of what is the relationship between the Church of Jesus Christ and the Roman Empire, and competing alternative empires of the world. And Augustine's City of God is one in which, in a very nuanced way, he understands that we are the pilgrim people moving through time toward the end of time, and with no ultimate allegiance to any temporal power or any empire or any nation, but with a responsibility as citizens to seek whatever measure of good can be achieved and whatever measure of evil can be restrained during this time of our pilgrimage.
Right. I guess this probably is not the best segue for that, but I was just wondering how would you say the Catholic vote itself might, they're certainly probably the biggest swing voting bloc, how that might translate this election, since clearly a lot of Catholics are concerned about the ongoing war, and they're always concerned about sort of the social issues regarding the culture of life.
Sure.
It seems that Obama, according to polls anyway, has some struggle with the Catholic vote. On the other hand, McCain has associated himself with a lot of evangelicals who are known for their anti-Catholic, outright anti-Catholic bigotry in some cases.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the second part, I think that the anti-Catholic bigotry within the evangelical world has undergone a major change in the last 3 decades or so. As you perhaps know, Chuck Colson, a major evangelical figure, and I, back in the early 90s, launched a project, an ongoing project, Evangelicals and Catholics Together. And at least as I listen to my evangelical Protestant friends, they think, and I see evidence in support of this, that there has been a sea change in attitudes toward the Catholic Church among most evangelicals. Right. Not all, by any means, but among most.
We still have our Hagees and our Parsleys.
Yeah, although it's encouraging to see that Hagee made a rather sensible and conciliatory statement the other day, didn't he? In which he apologized for some of his more extreme anti-Catholic rhetoric. So I think that this is a major sea change in American religion and consequently in American culture, and with undoubted effects in American politics. The convergence of interests and concerns between evangelicals and Catholics. As to your first question, Senator Obama is certainly in a difficult position. I mean, on many scores, and not least of all, that he has taken over the years the most extreme possible pro-abortion position one can take. I mean, even opposing what's called the Infant Born Alive Act, which protects children who have survived an abortion. And he opposes even this, and he supports partial birth abortion. How he's going to address these questions in a way that will get a hearing not only among Catholics, but among actually the majority of Americans now who describe themselves as pro-life. How he's going to do that will be very interesting to watch.
I do want to ask you another question, since Tex and I are both Bill Buckley fans, and it was a shame to see him pass this year. Yeah. We thought it'd be nice if we could leave with some, since you're a close friend of his as well, a reflection or an anecdote or a funny story you have regarding Mr. Buckley.
Oh, well, Bill was, thank God for his life and his witness. I mean, whether one agreed or disagreed with his politics, he was an extraordinary human soul who lived life fully. And as I wrote in the last issue of First Things, or the issue before, I forget, in a remembrance of Bill and times with him, he was in the last couple of years, and especially in the last year after the death of his deeply, deeply cherished wife, Pat, he was ready to go. And the last conversation, we had lunch together shortly before he died, and it was evident that he was in a state of grace and a state of tranquility with respect to his eternal hope and his gratitude for all that God had enabled him to do during his 82 years here on earth.
I always wished I could have met him. I envy you on that.
Well, he's a great man, no doubt about it.
Well, Father Richard, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I know there's so much we can talk about. I didn't even touch, I wanted to talk about, since Hillary Clinton was running, the whole complementarian, egalitarian divide. But that's a whole other theological discussion right there. I know, that's a whole other show.
Well, perhaps another time.
Well, thank you so much for your time.